I never thought a single act of kindness could turn my entire world upside down. But that night, under a dimly lit sky with nothing but the distant hum of crickets and the rattling breath of an old Mustang's dying engine, everything changed. I was driving home from a long shift at the repair shop, exhausted, hands coated in grease, and thoughts drowning in unpaid bills. My old truck, a rusty reminder of better days, rumbled along the deserted road. I should have been in bed, but life didn't care about my needs. My 5-year-old son, Jake, was sleeping at my neighbor's place because I couldn't afford babysitter. Rent was due, groceries were running low, and my ex had just left a voicemail demanding child support I didn't have. Then I saw her, a woman standing beside a beat-up '67 Mustang, hood up, hazard lights flickering weakly. She was alone, arms crossed against the biting cold, her face barely visible under the glow of the broken-down car's headlights. I could have driven past. It was late. I was dead tired, but something about her made me stop. I pulled over, grabbed my toolbox from the passenger seat, and stepped out. "Car trouble?" I asked, voice rough from a day of yelling over roaring engines. The woman turned, her silhouette sharp against the car's dim glow. She was tall, lean, dressed in an expensive-looking coat, though it was clear she wasn't used to being stranded like this. "Yeah," she sighed, clearly frustrated. "I think the engine's dead. It just stopped." I stepped closer, glancing at the car. A classic model, but it had been treated like junk. The tires were worn, the paint chipped, and the way she'd popped the hood told me she had no clue what she was doing. "Pop the trunk," I said. She hesitated, then reached inside and pulled the lever. I lifted the hood and immediately saw the issue: bad alternator, maybe a broken fuel pump. Either way, she wasn't driving anywhere tonight. "Looks like you got a real mess here," I muttered, grabbing a flashlight from my belt. She let out a short laugh. "That makes two of us." There was something in her voice, tired, guarded, like she wasn't used to relying on strangers. I understood that feeling all too well. I spent the next 40 minutes under the hood, fingers working on autopilot, years of experience kicking in. She watched, occasionally shifting her weight like she wanted to say something, but she didn't, and I wasn't much for small talk. Finally, I straightened up. "I patched it up enough to get you moving, but you'll need a real repair soon. You should get it to a shop." "Know a good one?" she asked, giving me a look that told me she already knew the answer. "Yeah," I nodded. "Mine." She smirked. "Figures." I wiped my hands on a rag and shut the hood. "You're good to go for now." She hesitated, then reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a thick stack of $100 bills. "How much do I owe you?" I blinked, taken aback. "Nothing." She frowned. "You just spent nearly an hour fixing my car. You deserve." I shook my head. "Not everything comes with a price tag. Just get home safe." For a moment, she just stared at me, like she wasn't used to hearing that. Like she'd spent her whole life around people who only did things when money was involved. Finally, she tucked the cash back into her pocket. "Thank you," she said quietly. "I mean it." I gave her a nod, turned back to my truck, and climbed in. I figured that was the end of it. I had no idea my life was about to change forever. I barely had time to process what had happened the night before when I heard a knock on my door the next morning. My tiny house was falling apart at the seams. Cracked walls, a sagging porch, a barely functioning heater. But it was home. It was all I had left after my divorce drained me of everything. Jake was sitting at the kitchen table, swinging his legs as he munched on dry cereal. I wiped my hands on my shirt, pushed back my exhaustion, and opened the door. And there she was, the woman from last night, standing on my porch, wearing the same coat, but this time she wasn't stranded. This time, she was standing tall, her gaze sharp. "You again?" I muttered, too tired to hide my surprise. She smirked. "I track you down. That's unsettling." She rolled her eyes. "Relax. You didn't give me your name, so I had to ask around." I crossed my arms. "And why would you do that?" She stepped forward. "Because I owe you." I let out a short laugh. "I told you I don't need your money." She tilted her head. "Who said anything about money?" Something in her voice sent a shiver down my spine. A feeling deep in my gut told me that my life was about to get a whole lot more complicated, and I had no idea just how right I was. I stared at the woman standing on my porch, still trying to process why she had come all the way to my house. You tracked me down? I repeated, my tone laced with suspicion. She smirked slightly, looking around at my rundown home. I could see her brain making calculations, wondering how someone like me lived in a place like this. Relax, she said. I just want to talk. I leaned against the doorframe. I don't have time for small talk. She raised a brow. I think you'll want to hear what I have to say. Something about her confidence rubbed me the wrong way, but before I could respond, Jay came running up behind me, peeking at her from behind my leg. Daddy, who's that? He asked in his small, sleepy voice. I ruffled his hair and gave the woman a pointed look. Just someone I helped last night. She glanced down at Jake, her expression softening just a fraction. Hey, kiddo. Jake waved shyly before running back inside, leaving us in silence. Finally, I sighed. You want to talk? Make it quick. She didn't waste time. I want to hire you. I blinked. Hire me? For what? You fix my car in the middle of nowhere without any tools in the dead of night, she said. That kind of skill isn't easy to find. And I have a business problem that needs fixing. I frowned. I run a small-town repair shop, lady. I'm not a miracle worker. That's exactly what I need, she said, taking a step closer. Someone who knows how to rebuild something that looks beyond saving. I studied her, trying to figure out her angle. And what's in it for me? Her lips curled into a knowing smile. More than you could ever imagine. I didn't invite her inside. She was too polished, too confident, too out of place in my world. So instead, we stood outside as she explained her deal. I own a company, she started. Or at least I did. My father left it to me when he passed away, but the board members are trying to push me out. They think I don't belong in the business world, that I don't have what it takes to run things. I frowned. And that's where I come in. How exactly? She crossed her arms. The company is automotive-based. My father built it from the ground up, but now it's falling apart. The people in charge don't know a thing about cars, and they're making all the wrong decisions. I exhaled, rubbing a hand down my face. And you think I do? I know you do, she said simply. I saw it last night. You don't just fix cars, you understand them. You brought my Mustang back to life when it should have been scrap. That's the kind of person I need. I shook my head. Lady, I've got a kid to raise, a shop that barely keeps the lights on, and a pile of debt I can't climb out of. I don't have time for some corporate war. Her expression didn't change. What if I made it worth your while? I doubt you can afford me. She smirked. I'm offering you $1 million. Silence. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. $1 million? I repeated, just to make sure I hadn't lost my mind. 1 million, she confirmed. To help me fix my company. To help me prove to the board that I belong there. And to teach those arrogant bastards that they made a mistake underestimating me. I stared at her, heart pounding in my chest. This had to be a joke. No way someone just threw around that kind of money. I don't get it, I admitted. Why me? Why not some big shop mechanic with a fancy degree? Because I don't want some big shop mechanic, she said. I want someone real. Someone who knows what it's like to fight for something. Someone who doesn't give up. I let out a slow breath, looking back at my house. The broken porch. The overdue bills sitting on the counter inside. My son, who deserved a better life. $1 million. It would change everything. But something about this deal felt too good to be true. And in my experience, when something feels that way, it usually is. I crossed my arms. What's the catch? She hesitated just for a second. Then she spoke. You'd have to come with me to the city. Work by my side. Help me rebuild the company from the inside. I felt my stomach twist. And what happens to my kid? She glanced toward my house. You bring him with you. I'll pay for housing, school, whatever he needs. I sucked in a breath. This woman was offering me everything I never thought I'd have. A way out. A second chance. But my gut told me there was more to this. And what happens if I say no? I asked. She smirked. Then you go back to fixing cars in a town that forgot you existed. And I lose my company. I exhaled heavily. The weight of the decision settled on my chest like a ton of bricks. This was either the best thing to ever happen to me or the biggest mistake of my life. And I had no idea which one would be. I stood there for what felt like an eternity, my mind racing with 1,000 questions. The weight of this decision crushed me. $1 million. The opportunity to change everything. To provide for Jake, to finally escape the debt, to give us a chance at a life I never thought possible. But there was something nagging at me, a feeling deep down that I couldn't ignore. People didn't just offer you millions without expecting something in return. And I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this than I was being told. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my shaking hands. "You're asking me to drop everything," I said slowly. "Leave my shop, leave my life behind, and just help you take down your father's company? Why me? Why now?" She sighed, looking past me at the horizon as if weighing the decision herself. Then she turned back to me. "I didn't want to get involved with this, but my father's death changed everything. I was supposed to take over, but the board, they took advantage of me. I don't have the experience they think I should have, and they want me gone. They want someone like them, someone who doesn't care about the people who actually build the products. I can't let them win. I need someone who actually understands this business, who knows how to fix what's broken. And you think I'm that person? Yes, I've seen it in you. You fix things that most people would give up on. I need someone who isn't afraid to get their hands dirty." I looked at her, still unsure, but the desperation in her eyes, the way her voice cracked with emotion, made me feel like she was being honest. "All right," I said, the words tumbling out of my mouth before I could stop them. "I'll help you, but we do this on my terms. And I want to guarantee you'll take care of Jake." Her face softened, a small but genuine smile tugging at her lips. "Done. You have my word." Later that morning, I packed what little I had, tossing clothes, some tools, and a few belongings into the back of my old truck. Jake sat quietly in the passenger seat, staring out the window, confused by the sudden change. "Why are we leaving, Daddy?" he asked in a soft voice. I glanced over at him, my heart aching. "Things are going to be better, buddy. You'll see." I wasn't sure if I was lying to him or myself. I couldn't promise him a better life, not yet. But I had to try. For him. As we drove, the long road to the city stretched out ahead, endless and uncertain. My thoughts churned in my mind. Was I making a huge mistake? Would this woman be the answer to all our problems? Or was I walking straight into a trap I didn't understand? I glanced at the woman in the rearview mirror. She was staring out the window, her face unreadable. There was something off about her, but I couldn't pinpoint what. "Where are we going first?" I asked, trying to break the tension. She turned to me, her gaze sharp. "To the office. You'll meet the team, the board members. I need to show them you're serious, and that I have support." I nodded, though I didn't really know what that meant. I wasn't exactly cut out for boardrooms and corporate battles. I was just a guy who fixed cars. But something in her made me think maybe, just maybe, I could help. We arrived at a sleek, modern office building that felt like it belonged in a different world. The polished glass doors, the cold steel exterior, it was everything I wasn't. The building was as tall as it was intimidating, and I suddenly felt small. Jake clutched my hand tightly as we walked inside. The woman led us to an elevator, and we went up to a high floor, where glass walls revealed a panoramic view of the city. "Here we are," she said, stepping out first. The boardroom was a cold, sterile place, with sleek furniture and a long glass table. The people inside were already waiting, their eyes sharp and calculating. A few nodded as she entered, but the rest barely acknowledged her presence. "This is Mike," she introduced me, gesturing to me like I was some kind of prize. "He's the one who's going to help us turn things around." The room went quiet for a moment as all eyes turned to me. I felt the weight of their stares, their skepticism. These people were used to power, used to winning, and I was just a guy who spent his life fixing broken-down cars. "Nice to meet you," I muttered, trying to hide my unease. "Let's see what you can do," one of the men, a middle-aged guy with graying hair, said coolly. He leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, looking at me like I was some kind of test. I swallowed. I've worked with cars all my life. I know engines, I know machines, I know what it takes to get things running again. I can fix your company, but it's going to take time. The room went silent again. The woman, my new boss, I guess, stepped forward. "We're in this together," she said, her voice firm. "Mike's going to help us get back on track, and we're going to do it the right way. No more cutting corners. No more pretending we can't do this." For the first time, I saw the board members react. They exchanged glances, some unsure, others just annoyed by her audacity. But in that moment, I saw the fire in her eyes. She wasn't going to back down. She was going to fight. And something told me, deep down, that I was in this fight now, too. The first few weeks were harder than I expected. I wasn't used to dealing with corporate jargon, board meetings, or people who cared more about numbers and engines. But I kept my head down and did what I was good at, fixing things. I worked with the mechanics in the shop, showing them how to streamline production, improve safety protocols, and fix the quality control problems that had been plaguing the company for years. I made a few tough calls, firing employees who didn't have the right attitude and bringing in new people who did. But it wasn't just about the cars. It was about restoring the company's soul. It was about showing the board members that they had been wrong about her and about me. Slowly, I started earning their respect. I wasn't just a mechanic in their eyes anymore. I was someone who could make things work, who could bring the company back from the brink of collapse. And as for her, she wasn't the cold, calculating corporate figure I had first assumed. She was passionate, driven, and, most importantly, honest. She was doing everything she could to prove she belonged in that room. And I started to believe she did. But not everyone was convinced. The hardest test was still ahead. The board had been pushing for more aggressive tactics, cutting costs, reducing quality, and focusing on profits over everything else. They wanted to squeeze the last bit of money out of the company, even if it meant hurting the people who worked for it. I couldn't stand by and let that happen, and neither could she. So we made a plan. We knew it was risky. It could destroy everything we'd built, everything we were fighting for. But it was the only chance we had to prove to the board that we weren't like them, that we were doing this the right way. And that's when things took a turn I wasn't ready for. The board meeting had reached its climax. Grace and I stood side by side, facing the board members. The air in the room was thick with tension. "Your plan hasn't worked as quickly as we hoped," one board member said, his voice sharp. "We need results now." Grace's expression hardened. "I didn't come here for quick fixes. I came here to build something sustainable." The board member scoffed, but I could see the flicker of doubt in his eyes. This was it. This was our moment to either back down or stand our ground. "I'm not here to play by your rules," I said, cutting through the tension. "We spent too long pretending to be something we're not. We fixed things the right way, slowly but surely. It's about the people, not the profits." The room was silent. No one had expected me to speak up, but I wasn't going to let Grace fight this battle alone. "You're gambling with everything," one of them said. "If this doesn't work, we'll pull out." Grace didn't flinch. Then we go down fighting. The silence was deafening. Then, to my surprise, one of the board members stood up and said, "You've got one more chance." Things are looking up, but it was too good to be true. I was working late one night when I received an anonymous tip. "Someone inside is sabotaging your progress." I couldn't believe it. After everything we'd been through, someone on the inside was working against us. I immediately told Grace, and we began investigating. We quickly discovered the leak. One of our trusted employees had been leaking information to our competitors. The betrayal hit me hard. This person had been a part of the team, someone we had trusted. But now, we had no choice but to confront them. We confronted the traitor in his office. His face was pale when we showed him the evidence. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," he stammered, his voice shaky. "I thought I could fix things later." Grace wasn't having it. "You've jeopardized everything. You're out. Pack your things." We didn't hesitate. He was fired on the spot. He had betrayed us, and there was no turning back. After the betrayal, we had to rebuild trust, both with our employees and the board. But we pushed forward, working harder than ever to prove that we weren't just about profits. We were about people. We brought in new team members who believed in our vision, and we tightened our security to ensure that nothing like this would happen again. Months passed, and our efforts started to pay off. The company began to thrive again. Profits were up, and employees were happy. Grace and I had turned things around, but we knew the work wasn't over. Then, the moment we'd been working for arrived, a massive deal that would secure the company's future for years to come. We signed it, proving that we were more than just survivors. We were victors. The board finally acknowledged us, and for the first time, I saw Grace's face light up with the realization that we had succeeded. The company was back on track. More importantly, We had proven to ourselves that we could succeed without sacrificing our values. Grace and I walked into the office the next day, and it felt like we were walking into our future, not just a company, but a legacy. We had built something real, and nothing could tear it down now.